The following clips in this video are owned by Hasbro. Please support the official release by buying the DVDs or watching on streaming services. Thank you. Hi, welcome back to my video series on Beast Wars, where last time we finished looking at the first season of the show, which I still think holds up really great despite what, well, obviously new viewers would be really critical of the animation, but I think it holds up alright. And from what I gathered, it was popular enough to get more than one season, which is what we're going to be looking at now. Now, here's the thing. Season 1 did have an ongoing story, but with the amount of episodes it had, they mixed in a bunch of filler. Now, with Season 2 onward, or at least Seasons 2 and 3, they each have half the episodes, so 13 instead of 26. Which might mean that there might be a lot less filler just to get to the story. So with that, let's check out Season 2 of Beast Wars. Aftermath picks up right where Season 1 ended, with the Maximals taking in the fact that Optimus just died, with the Predacons briefly celebrating the death of Optimus, until Megatron brings up how this is the perfect time to strike the Maximals. But then their ships get wind of an energy wave heading toward the planet after the Vok weapon was destroyed, with the Maximals also getting wind of this shortly after they notice that Black Arachnia is gone. Speaking of, we see her trying to get out of there, when we then find out that when she tried to scan Tarantulas' head in the last episode, they became psychically linked. Back on the bridge, the Maximals brace for impact from the energy wave, and from it, Cheetor and Rattrap start glowing, with the same thing happening to the Predacon base with Megatron starting to glow as well. Now, this also happened to Terrorsaur and Scorponok as well, but as it happens, we see them fall into the lava and are pretty much dead for the rest of the show. Now, Scorponok I feel like makes sense, given the character we get in the next episode, but I don't know, I think it's weird that they even bothered to tease that these two might get something interesting. We then cut back to the Maximal base, with their ship looking worse than usual. And inside, we see Tigertron and Airazor waking up and seeing that Rattrap and Cheetor have changed from what just happened. And out of curiosity, they change into Beast Mode to see how they look, as well as learning that their new Beast Modes also come with slight vehicle modes to them. Back at the Predacon base, we see that Waspinator survived and that Megatron also got a new body out of this. Then we cut back to Black Arachnia, who sets free Inferno and also finds out that even Tarantulas' body got affected by what just happened. Then we see Rhinox in the CR chamber having a dream about Optimus and his spark, where he then wakes up and sees what's happened and asks what happened to Optimus, with Dinobot waking up not long after, with Rattrap getting them both up to speed, and even gives a name to their new forms.
We woke up, Cheetor and I, with these trans metals.
Outside, we see Black Arachnia escape until she's caught almost instantly, but then is sorta saved by Megatron, who wants to kill her for trying to betray him, until she mentions how it's clear that he's short-handed and, well, reluctantly, he lets her live, mostly as a soldier for him. But then Rattrap and Cheetor come to see what's happening and get shot at, and when they try to call for backup, Rhinox and Dinobot get ambushed by Inferno, who's still on the ship. And back outside, Black Arachnia leaves with Tarantulas' body, and we end up getting a pretty cool fight showing off their new bodies and weapons. And we also learn that Megatron's Beast Mode has rollerblades. I don't get it. Afterwards, Megatron sees Inferno, and he ends up grabbing him while retreating, with the episode ending with two stasis pods in the middle of nowhere. So that was the opening of Season 2, and so far it was really good. Granted, there were a few questions left unanswered, but we get more of that in the next two episodes. And the weirdest thing to me is the fact that they killed off two of the Predacons in the opening episode, because, like we saw, they were glowing and were going to get transmetal bodies. And apparently, from what I gathered, the reason they did this was just in case they felt like bringing them back for one reason or another. But it never happened, which is even stranger seeing as how Terrorsaur did have a Transmetal toy. I don't know, let's just move on to the next episode. Coming of the Fusors picks up right where the last episode did, where we see two pods in the middle of nowhere, with Megatron and Inferno making their way to them. But then both Waspinator and Dinobot take notice of how this planet now only has one moon now. Where Dinobot then breaks into the Predacon base, where the both of them realize that the planet they are on this whole time was actually Earth, and that the golden disc which was stolen at the beginning of the show might have the power to see the future. So Dinobot makes Waspinator set off the traps that Megatron left behind so he can take the disc, along with the one they got from the Vok, where he then makes a run for it once he's spotted by Black Arachnia. Then we cut to the Maximals, who also find a stasis pod, where Tigatron and Airazor decide to head off, mostly to see what else could have happened to the planet after recent events. Then we learn that the pod they found is actually a blank, meaning that there is a protoform in it, but it doesn't have a spark. Back at the other two pods, we do see them activate, but due to the crash, the scanners end up scanning two beasts, which end up giving them hybrid beast modes. Now, this is why this episode is called Coming of the Fusors, because aside from the Transmetal, the other gimmick for the toy line at the time were the Fusors, which were pretty much animal hybrid beast modes. Which is shown here with how one of them is a fusion of a scorpion and a cobra, and also probably the reason they killed off Scorponok, and the other one is a combination of a wolf and an eagle, where they then get intercepted by Inferno, who literally starts attacking them, with Megatron from afar reprogramming their activation codes, where he then goes to them in a friendly manner and even tells them that they are now Predacons, as well as giving them the information on how to transform.
Quick strike! Terrorize! And what tarnation! Silverbolt! Terrorize.
With Silverbolt not really vibing on how it feels to be a Predacon. Then we cut to the Maximals, where we see Rhinox trying an experiment which involves transwarp space, which apparently opened up after everything that's been going on, for reasons he has yet to describe. With Rattrap bringing up how now's probably not the best time given how their numbers are falling, with Optimus being dead and Tigatron Airazor running off to scout the planet. Then we see Dinobot contemplating on what to do with the golden discs. Like, should he use them to change the future and his fate? Or should he just destroy them and let things play out as is? And with such a difficult decision, he decides to just hide them and think on it more later. Then we see Black Arachnia putting Tarantulas' mind back into his own body, in a scene that's kinda similar to Frankenstein. Then we cut back to Megatron, who is showing his new recruits the ropes on how to be a Predacon, with Silverbolt having more misgivings on being a Predacon when he's asked to hunt down Cheetor when he flies by. Where we then see Dinobot make it back to base with one of the golden discs, and he even heavily arms himself just so him and Rattrap can go help Cheetor. Then we cut back to Tarantulas, who apparently still has a psychic link between him and Black Arachnia, where he's then called in by Megatron to help take out the Maximals, with the episode coming to an end with a Western-style standoff between the Maximals and the Predacons. Like I said before, I will give my final thoughts on a multi-parter once we're done through both episodes. Part 2 immediately starts off with a firefight, with the Maximals being very outgunned. Then when the Predacons get reinforcements, Megatron tells them to finish him off, until Silverbolt starts to question why they don't just ask them to surrender, given how outmatched they are, with Megatron responding how you think he would.
No.
While this is going on, Black Arachnia is being instructed by Tarantulas to find a copy of what was on the golden disc. Back at the battle, the Predacons notice how the Maximals have not yet retreated, and find out that something is going on back at their base. So they send in some flyers to get there quickly. Then we find out that Rhinox is currently looking for something beyond the Matrix. But what exactly? Then the Maximals notice what's happening and begin to make their way back to base. And while this is going on, Black Arachnia does find a copy of the Golden Discs, and she downloads them, while also lying to Tarantulas about them being destroyed. Eventually, the Maximals do make it back, and they end up taking in Silverbolt as a hostage instead of killing him, which actually surprises him. Also around this time, Rhinox does make it back, and when Rattrap asks where he was, he gives a very vague answer saying that he went to the Transformers version of the afterlife. But they don't have time to talk because the Predacons are unloading everything onto them. But then we see that whatever Rhinox did make the blank protoform they found in the last episode wake up and start moving. Back outside, the shields go down and the Maximals are shot at relentlessly until morning. Then we get this really badass shot of the Predacons in the morning sun walking toward the Maximals as they're about to kill them. But then right as they're about to finish them off, a blast comes from their ship and it turns out to be Optimus. Okay, so you're probably asking, how is Optimus back? Well, with the explosion at the end of Season 1, it opened a portal to, well, the Transformers version of the afterlife. And through Rhinox's experiments we saw him doing, he pretty much put his subconscious in there to look for Optimus Primal Spark, just so he could put it in the blank protoform they got in the previous episode to bring him back. Yeah, sorry I felt like I had to explain this, it's just, I don't know, I feel like it was necessary in case you were having a hard time following what was going on. Now that he's back, he instantly starts firing on them, and we even see that his beast mode now has a hoverboard. Don't ask me why. We even get more Old West style fighting when we see Optimus and Inferno have a who's gonna shoot first moment. Then as Megatron is about to cheap shot Optimus, Silverbolt comes in and saves them, as well as saying that he's leaving the Predacons. Afterward, Optimus gets up to speed on what has transpired, and when he asks how the new bodies handle Energon buildup, we learn that apparently when the moon was firing the heat ray at the end of the last season, it either set off the Energon or completely stabilized the Energon in their current sector of the planet. As for the rest of the planets, they're still waiting for Tigertron and Airazor to report back. Then the episode ends on the Predacon base, where Black Arachnia lies about what happened to the backup files on the Golden Discs, while showing the audience that she still has them. Okay, so these were the opening 3 episodes of the season, and yeah, they still hold up great, like really damn good. And believe it or not, when I was a kid, I legit thought this was a 3-part storyline with how well all of it fit together. As for the plot, well, I love how it establishes the new characters, the new bodies, and giving us a taste of how things are going to work this season. However, with the Fusor gimmick, I find it weird how they made all these toys for the Fusors, and yet in the show, for the longest time, the only Fusors we have are Quickstrike and Silverbolt. And we don't get another Fusor until maybe the last 3 episodes of the next season. I don't know, I just found it weird how they never gave us more. However, one of the things I did really like was establishing that the planet they were on this whole time was Earth. I don't know, I thought that was an interesting reveal because through a lot of Season 1, they went out of their way to establish that this was just another random planet with similar animals to Earth. So, I don't know, like, it could be seen as a cop-out, but with all the build-up, I think it was a good reveal. As well as revealing that the Golden Disc might have some information that would be very vital, which we will get more of as the season goes on, which I'm excited to look at, so let's keep watching. Tangled Web has it where Megatron starts to take advantage of how the energy on Earth is now more stable, and plans on building a recharge station in a cave with a massive energon reserve. However, when Tarantula sees the location, he plans to turn it into another secret lab for himself. And he does this by tricking the Maximals into finding the location and compromising it. Also in this episode, we see Black Arachnia sever her psychic link between her and Tarantulas by literally torturing the both of them until he sets her free. Later on, when Rat Trap and Silverbolt find the cavern they plan to use, we see that Silverbolt can't bring himself to harm Black Arachnia on account of the fact that she's female. Then, by the end of the fight that goes on, a fake explosion by Tarantulas makes it look like the cavern is now useless, leading to Tarantulas to set up shop in it, ending the episode. Now, this was another good introduction episode to the season, because it's after the opening three-parter. Okay, I know it's a two-parter, but I still think of it as three big episodes. And it's also important because we got to see more of the new characters in action, and we got to see Black Arachnia sever her psychic link with Tarantulas, which is very important because even now, Tarantulas has no idea that she backed up the golden disc into her memory. And another thing we get this episode, which will blossom more as the show goes on, is Silverbolt's interest in Black Arachnia. We'll see more of it as the show goes on. Maximal No More is an interesting one, because it has it where Dinobot notices that the Predacons are up to something, and as a way to get more intel, he decides to rejoin the Predacons after being captured in an ambush. But before he rejoins, he has to prove himself in a one-on-one duel with Quickstrike, as well as having to give back the golden discs to Megatron. But when he takes him to one of them, yeah, he hid both discs in two separate locations, he gets found out by Rat Trap, and when some of the other Maximals find out what he was doing, he unfortunately has nothing to show for his betrayal. He still stays a Maximal by the end of the episode, but they don't really trust him as much anymore. Now this is a very important episode because it shows Megatron getting the golden disc back, which does really make things awkward between Dinobot and the Maximals for the next couple episodes, as well as setting up a very big decision Dinobot's going to make in a few episodes. So yeah, this one I highly recommend. Other Visitors is our next two-part episode, and it starts off with the Maximals studying the other alien sightings with the golden disc they still have that was left behind by the Vok, and they pinpoint a possible location of another Vok structure, which Tigatron and Airazor are heading towards right now. But due to interference from Predacon jamming towers that they've been setting up in the last couple of episodes, they unfortunately can't make contact with them, with even Tarantulas starting to notice an alien signal coming from the area, so he makes his way there with Megatron wondering where he's going. Then, after not seeing them for a few episodes, we finally get to see Tigatron and Airazor again, where they find some plant life, which does surprise them on account of the fact that most of it was burned up at the end of Season 1. But then, after a nice moment between the two of them, the plants start attacking them, and when it looks like they're about to be ripped apart, they get abducted by the Vok, with Cheetor being too late to stop them. With all of this getting noticed by Megatron, who realizes that Tarantulas wants whatever the Vok had left behind in the area, and even plans on taking the other golden disc back, mostly with how the Maximals are spread out at the moment. Then we cut back to the plant location, where Optimus makes it there and finds out what happened from Cheetor, with Rat Trap and Dinobot finding out as well once they take out one of the jamming towers, as well as Rhinox, where he also gets a visit from Megatron, who ends up taking the golden disc back. Back at the Predacon base, we see them studying the golden disc, with Tarantulas coming back saying he knows how to use the information on it, with the Maximals thinking on how to take out the Predacons now before they end up having to deal with both them and the Vok later. Where, speak of the devil, their computer tells them about an anomaly in space, with the Predacons heading back to the plant location preparing for what's coming, with the Maximals wasting no time in getting there, and when they get ready to have a brawl between the two factions, the plants start to make a structure which gets finished by the Vok, and also sends out an EMP which knocks everyone out, ending the episode. Alright, that was part 1, so let's get to part 2. Part 2 picks up with the ones who are fusors or having transmetal bodies waking up from the EMP, with the rest still incapacitated. And when the Maximals try to stop the Predacons, we see that what they were setting up was actually a force field to keep them out, and probably the Vok as well. With Megatron using the other golden disc to gain access to the Vok structure. While inside, they quickly realize that their new upgraded bodies makes it so it doesn't see them as a threat, which makes it easy for them to just roam around and figure out how it all works. Where he then inserts the disc into a terminal which gives him full access to the Vok structure, with the Maximals who haven't gone sent back for repairs still outside trying to find a way in. But as they do, Megatron then makes the structure take off into the sky, where he then picks up everyone and even makes it look like his face in the front, where he then tells Tarantulas that he doesn't need him anymore, leading to him to transport the entire facility to another part of the planet, while also saying that he has big plans for it, which surprisingly have the Maximals' destruction as an afterthought. At the Maximal base, Rattrap brings over Tarantulas, who wants revenge on Megatron for obvious reasons, with the rest of them being split on whether or not they should trust him. They do reluctantly let him help, and he finds out where they are through some transwarp parts that were brought onto the ship, where we cut to Megatron, who explains that he plans to take the Vok ship to Cybertron so he can conquer it, then afterwards destroy the Vok, with the Maximals wasting no time in getting there fast, and they start blasting away at it, causing some noticeable damage, as well as giving Rattrap and Tarantulas an opening for them to sneak in, where Rattrap sets Optimus free, leading to him and Megatron to fight in beast mode, while Tarantula sets the transwarp drive they brought on board to explode, which it does once everyone gets out and it tries to fly away, with the episode ending with the Maximals wondering if Tigertron and Airazor are still alive somewhere. Another great episode, or episodes, where a lot of interesting or important stuff happens. For one, 2 of the Maximals are presumed dead. As well, one of the golden discs is practically destroyed because we never see them remove it when the Vok structure blows up, so it's gone. Yeah, definitely recommend watching this one for all the important stuff that goes down. Now, Bad Spark is where we get a rather interesting character, because it starts off with a big stasis pod that landed in a pile of Energon with a big X written on it, and when the Maximals get wind of it, Rhinox actually prays that whatever is inside is hopefully offline. And when the Maximals go to see it, it does appear to be offline, thankfully. And when Cheetor asks what it is, Optimus explains that it was originally something called Protoform X, which was meant to be an experiment to replicate Starscream's indestructible spark, which sort of worked, but it was too powerful to control. So they were sent off to dump it on a dead planet just to leave it to roam, until they were sidetracked with stopping the Predacons, where right on cue they come to take the pod, not knowing that it's already offline and that it was too powerful for even the Maximals to handle. And during the fight, the energy around the pod starts to overload, causing a storm which separates them, with Silverbolt and Black Arachnia being together. However, Silverbolt is damaged and can't fly, and the reception is really bad, so they make their way to a high vantage point to get better reception and call for help. Then we see that Tarantula's landed close to the pod, and when he goes to see it, we find out that it's empty and that Tarantulas is not alone. Then we see Optimus and Cheetor, who decide to head back to base for repairs and then come back for Silverbolt, assuming he's still alive, where we then see him and Black Arachnia still trying to find their way around, and then they get attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, where both it and Silverbolt end up falling off a cliff, with Black Arachnia surprisingly going out of her way to save him. Back at the Maximal ship, we see Optimus and Cheetor are repaired, and we also get this scene where Dinobot connects himself to the ship's computer. Okay, so this scene is both important and not important at the same time. I will really get into this in the next video. Trust me, just wait a bit. Back in the woods, they come across bits and pieces of Tarantulas, and they quickly find out what did this to him. And this guy is known as Rampage, who proves to be just as indestructible as Optimus described. And even with help, they barely push him off a cliff, and even that doesn't work. Still, Silverbolt makes him fall even further just to get him away. But then he ends up shooting Black Arachnia off another cliff, with Silverbolt coming in to save her in heroic fashion. Then the episode comes to a rather gruesome end where Megatron takes in Rampage, and he even cuts his spark in half just so he can torture him if he ever disobeys, practically forcing him to be a Predacon. Well, that's one way to get a new recruit. And that was Bad Spark, another really good episode, which establishes a lot because, for one, we got to see more of Silverbolt and Black Arachnia's relationship like Blossom, and we also learned what the Maximals were originally doing before they were dragged into the Beast Wars. And funny enough, the box that I'm using to watch this show, hang on, actually came with this nice little comic which does elaborate more on what went down before they were sent here. Also, I find the way that Megatron got Rampage to join the Predacons to be quite fascinating because up to this point, he would just look for a stasis pod and reprogram who was inside into a Predacon. But not Rampage. Here, he already opened up and proved to be a very dangerous creature. So instead of the usual way to get a new member, he pretty much put him on a leash and practically tortures him if he ever disobeys. Yeah. So, yeah, another episode I highly recommend. I feel like I've been saying that a lot about this season. Now, Code of Hero is debatably the best episode of the season and the show, where it starts off with the first humans coming into existence. Yeah, in case you forgot, they are on a prehistoric version of Earth, so seeing humans finally start to manifest is a big deal. Then we see Dinobot contemplating on whether or not he should extinguish his own spark. Okay, this got dark. Then we see that Rhinox discovered that the explosion from the end of Season 1, or at least the shockwave from it, will eventually reach Cybertron in their version of the present, meaning that once they get it, help will be on the way for them. Then we see Dinobot getting the cold shoulder from Rat Trap. I mean, they never got along well to begin with, but now that he's responsible for Megatron having the golden disc and switching sides in that one episode, he feels like the ridicule towards him is more warranted, unfortunately. So he runs off to try and redeem himself, which eventually leads to him holding Tarantulas at gunpoint, asking what exactly was on the golden disc and why Megatron wants it so bad. But unfortunately for him, all backup copies were destroyed, and to avoid risk of someone finding said copy, the only way to know what was on the disc is with the disc itself, which Megatron now keeps on him at all times. Where we then see Megatron testing a theory he has with the golden disc. That being, since the disc has knowledge of the future, and since right now they're in the ancient past, is it possible to change the future? So he tests this by blowing up a mountain, and seeing that the information on the disc has changed, proving that right now he can change the future to his liking. And now that he knows that he can change the future, his next plan is to literally wipe out early humans so they can't go to help the Autobots in the 1980s. Which he wastes no time in having the Predacons do so. And when Dinobot sees this, he contacts the Maximals for help, but unfortunately can't make it in time. So with no other choice, he makes a stand to fight all the Predacons on his own to save the human race. And the fight he puts up against the Predacons is just awesome. Seeing him fight with everything he has and getting more and more damaged with his internal computer telling him to stop is just really impactful to see. Eventually, when he has to face Megatron, he's already on the brink of death, but he still keeps fighting. But Megatron has one of the humans as a hostage, which doesn't stop him from fighting, even with a stick, which you can obviously guess does nothing to him, until he adds a rock and is able to fend him off. And with what little energy he has left, he destroys the golden disc, with the Maximals finally making it to put out the fires and fend off Megatron. But unfortunately, Dinobot is too badly damaged to be saved. So with his last words, he asks them to tell his story as it was, flaws and all. With his spark leaving his body, and the Maximals saluting him off, with Optimus giving this nice farewell to him.
He lived a warrior and died a hero.
As well as giving him a funeral while cremating his body. Then the episode comes to an end with the human he saved learning how to use the weapon that Dinobot used to save his life in different ways. Okay, wow. I can see why a lot of fans would call this the best episode in the entire show. I mean, yeah, there was that one little animation error with Rat Trap during the funeral, but other than that, this episode was perfect. Like, the stakes were very high with the fact that the human race was on the verge of being wiped out and only one Maximal being able to save them. And also, the way Dinobot was killed was just done so perfectly. And also the fact that he was a popular character too, and out of all the ones to kill off, they chose him. Yeah, if you only feel like just watching one episode of the show, I highly recommend this one. Just in case you only want to see one, just to know what it's like. Now, Transmutate is also an emotional episode, but for different reasons. Because the plot involves another stasis pod being found, with the character Transmutate being inside, who proves to be quite powerful with a really creepy screech attack. But unfortunately for her, neither the Maximals or the Predacons want her for different reasons. Like when Rampage brings her to Megatron, he deems her as useless because she can't transform. And when Silverbolt brings her to the Maximals, they label her as a danger to both herself and those around her, and think it would be best just to put her out of her misery, which Silverbolt does not take well.
Do we destroy whatever does not fit our definition of perfection?
And by the end of the episode, she self-destructs in order to stop the only two people who were nice to her to stop fighting. Okay, so this episode was definitely intense. Mostly for the fact that it deals with the question of what to do with someone deemed as defective. And I'm autistic, so I can relate to this episode on a base level. As well, I can see why nowadays someone would look at this episode and see it as controversial. Mostly because of how both factions didn't want her and didn't really treat Transmutate as their own person. Granted, Rampage was nice to her, mostly because he can easily relate to the fact that they're both seen as dangerous bots that people wanted to put down. And Silverbolt was nice to her because he's just a nice guy. Yeah, this was definitely an interesting episode for that fact alone, or everything I just said. And here's the funny thing. This is the only filler episode in Season 2, because up to this point, everything was important to some degree. And also, the episode after this is the big 3-part finale. So, kind of a strange episode to have right before ending the season. So with all that, let's get into the show's big 3-part finale. The agenda part 1 starts off with the explosion from the end of Season 1, where we see Rhinox calculating that it will reach Cybertron soon, and it will give them their location, which should lead to them getting help to go home, with the Maximals being very excited, and the Predacons not really looking forward to it. Then we see that Silverbolt and Black Arachnia have been meeting in secret for an undisclosed amount of time, with Silverbolt giving her parts to build something, while also trying to convince her to join the Maximals, mostly on account of the fact that she was a Maximal protoform before the Predacons got to her. Then we cut to a space station, which is also a Predacon outpost, where we see the Tripredacus Council who know what's going on and discreetly block Cybertron from getting the signal that would help the Maximals, mostly because they plan to take over Cybertron, and having them discover that Megatron was involved with their plans in any way would ruin everything. And as a way to make it look like Cybertron got the signal, they plan to send an operative to take care of things. Back on Earth, we see the Maximals on full alert, expecting the Predacons to make their move on them while they wait for help from Cybertron. And the Predacons do not waste any time to do everything they can to take out their defenses. But then help comes and drives off the Predacons, with Megatron having a backup plan in the works. With all the fighting done at the moment, they try to make contact with the ship that saved them, but get no response. But then the hatch on their ship opens up, leading to Optimus randomly bringing up how after the Great War, some of the Decepticons were let go to retire, except for one who was reprogrammed as a Predacon. Then we see who it is, and after disarming them, he makes a proper introduction.
Covert Agent Ravage at your service.
With the Maximals wondering why a Predacon was sent to get them instead of other Maximals, where he claims that the signal was weak and that only the Predacons were able to detect it, and that they want this rescue mission to be kinda kept discreet, with the Maximals being hesitant to trust him about all this. Then we cut to the Predacon base, where we see Black Arachnia working on a stasis pod when she's called to Megatron, who tells her to get ready for an attack. With the Maximals on their way, and they get airdropped in the battle, with Cheetor not having the best luck. But when Silverbolt is asked to fire on Black Arachnia, he can't bring himself to do it. Then we see Ravage firing on the Predacon ship, where he then captures Megatron, ending Part 1. Part 2 starts off with Optimus reprimanding Silverbolt for his secret meetings with Black Arachnia, with Silverbolt trying to convince Optimus that she can be good, even though she's clearly using him. So Optimus says he will send in Cheetor to bring her in, despite Silverbolt's objections. Then we cut to Ravage's ship, where we see Megatron in captivity, as well as learning a couple of things. First off, we learn that Ravage did used to work for the original Megatron, showing that what Optimus said about Decepticon becoming a Predacon was true. And that secretly Tarantulas was a spy for the Predacon secret police. Back on the Maximal ship, we see Cheetor about to head out, until Silverbolt knocks him out and makes a run for it. Then later, we see Optimus and Cheetor following up on an Energon trail that Megatron tried using to bribe Ravage. But it turns out to be an ambush, where we then follow up on Silverbolt trying to convince Black Arachnia to be a Maximal, despite even her telling him that he's an idiot, and even shoots him in the leg to get the point across, which he sees as a sign that she's not evil just for the fact that it wasn't a fatal shot, which annoys her to no end. Where they then crash into Waspinator, who she was following before he showed up. Then we cut back to the cave with the raw Energon, which gives Inferno Energon buildup, where he then shoots at it in an attempt to blow up everyone in the cave. But it fails, with this getting reported back to Ravage, with Megatron bringing up how he knows that his mission wasn't to bring them back, but to actually wipe them all out and cover up the Beast Wars. Where he then starts to tell him the real reason he stole the Golden Disc, with Ravage assuming that it was just for the Energon on Earth. But in truth, after the disc was sent off into space by NASA, the original Megatron got it and put a secret message on it just in case the Decepticons lost the Great War, with Ravage pointing out how the disc was destroyed so he can't exactly prove it. But Megatron still has a piece of it, and he plays this with it.
This is Megatron, and if you are hearing this, it means I've failed.
And now that Ravage knows that Megatron was just following the orders of his original boss, he lets him free to talk business. Then we cut back to Black Arachnia and Silverbolt, digging in an area where apparently Megatron dug it up and then sealed it back up again, with Black Arachnia still taking advantage of Silverbolt's crush on her to get him to do as she says. Then we see Optimus and Cheetor making it back to base, where they both learn from Rattrap that Ravage had switched sides, where we then get this cool moment from him now that he knows that everything Megatron has done was for the Decepticons.
Decepticons forever!
So, if you haven't figured it out now, Ravage is actually one of Soundwave's original cassette tapes from back in the 80s. And this toy here of Ravage that my brother has actually came with this little cassette that actually transforms into his old design from that old cartoon. I don't know, that was such a cool reference that came out of nowhere, which makes you respect the fact that this show treats all the history of Transformers with good respect, which we will see more of in the next episode, which we should get right to. Part 3 picks up with Ravage and Megatron firing on the Maximals with some of the other Predacons who are still in the area. And while the Maximals are scrambling to stay alive, we get probably Rattrap's most badass moment, where he gets on top of Ravage's ship, dumps some bombs in the ship, damaging it from the inside, as well as killing Ravage in the process, where he then rides it as it traps Rampage, with the ship's main missile firing on him at point-blank range. Yeah, they did not have to go this hard on making Rattrap look cool. But I'm not complaining. Then the Maximals quickly notice that Megatron is retreating somewhere else that isn't his home base, so they decide to follow him, with Optimus worried that if Megatron is going where he thinks he's going, then things are about to get a lot worse. Where we then cut to Silverbolt and Black Arachnia blasting their way into a cavern, which has something very dangerous to even tamper with. The Ark. So, for those of you who don't know, the Ark was the original ship the Autobots used to leave Cybertron to get to Earth, with some of the Decepticons on board due to some of the battles that went on during the escape. Now, I never watched the original Transformers cartoon. However, I did play a couple of the video games that took place during the war that went down before the Ark took off, with one of them actually ending with its launch. And we saw in an earlier episode where Megatron did try to wipe out the humans before they can help the Autobots, which unfortunately failed thanks to Dinobot. But now that he has access to the Ark, he can do way more damage to history than he did his first attempt. After a brief history lesson on what the Ark is and how it got there, Megatron comes in and blasts Silverbolt, along with sealing the Maximals out. While inside the cavern, which is also an active volcano, we learn that Megatron knows that Black Arachnia was actually lying about the backups of the Golden Disc being destroyed, and that she still has a copy in her memory banks. And since he needs the access codes to the Ark right now, he threatens to kill Silverbolt if Black Arachnia doesn't comply. Which she does, showing that she does like him to some extent, with the Maximals just barely missing him as he gets inside and activates the ship's defenses. While the Maximals try desperately to get inside, we see Megatron go through the ship, flying by a bunch of classic Transformer characters. He then comes face to face with Optimus Prime himself, where he then fires his main weapon at full power to kill him. So yeah, the original Megatron's backup plan was to kill Optimus before he can lead the Autobots in the Great War to victory. I wonder how he described it on the Golden Disc.
Why not just go back and kill
Optimus Prime.
when he's sitting on the crapper or something?
Yeah, that's probably how it went down. Where we then get a really cool visual of the fabric of space and time shattering, with Megatron coming out of the Ark and saying this chilling monologue.
Say goodbye to the universe, Maximals. The future has changed. Yes. The Autobots lose. Evil triumphs. And you no longer exist.
Okay, like every other episode in this season, these last 3 were awesome. Like, the plot was epic as hell, and I love all the callbacks to the original Transformers, even though I never watched it. Granted, now that we know that the show takes place millions of years in the past, the episode in Season 1 where Starscream comes back kind of doesn't make any sense, because in that episode, he was already dead, so how is he in the past, and how did he not recognize the planet he was on? Whatever. Season 2 was awesome. Heck, I'd even go as far as to say this is even better than Season 1 for a multitude of reasons. One of them being the transmetal bodies half the characters got. Mostly because in Season 1, they all had realistic or supposed realistic beast modes, and given the limited animation, yeah, some of the models didn't look good. But now that they have more robotic beast modes, they actually look really good, and I think keep the season from aging too bad. As well, I love how there's only one filler episode in all of this, because in Season 1, I'd say about close to half the episodes were filler, with the story mixed in, which kept me very invested in what was going on the whole time. With all that, I am now very excited to see Season 3, especially with the big cliffhanger ending this show ended on, or at least this season. See ya!